Candy, thank you so much for joining us today. As we start, can you say a few words about your current role and what's in your purview?
Sure. So my current role is immediate past president for ISSA International, which is a full-time volunteer job that I now have all that extra time to focus on my paying job, which is as the CISO for NeuEon, which is a small consulting group based out of the Boston area. So as part of that role, I'm able to work with multiple clients as, like so many of us have migrated to the fractional or virtual CISO, which has really proven to be a lot of fun. I have been in this profession for a really long time. So now I get to be challenged and, as I mentioned, have fun with multiple clients in different verticals and industries. So that's pretty much what I'm doing today.
I see. And those companies, are they, is it certain industry? I know Boston is very heavy, kind of healthcare and technology and education, or company size. What do you have a sweet spot in terms of the clients that you work with, or you're agnostic?
We're pretty much agnostic. The common denominator, I would say, for the clients is more mid-sized enterprise. So, I mean, I look at the clients I'm working with currently, they're local municipalities, all the way over to retail, D2C, digital to consumer, to schools, you name it. And that's what makes it so much fun, is it's really diverse. And I most certainly don't get bored in any of those accounts, if you will.
I can imagine. It's always, well, one thing that we find is cybersecurity is a team sport, but also another is that it's always changing, always evolving, both in terms of technology, just evolving so rapidly, both on the tech side, on the vendor side. There are all vendors coming up, new products coming up, but also on the attacker side. So it just it's never ending fight. That paints the picture. And you mentioned you had a long career. I noticed you worked for HP for a period of time, but if you now have a good understanding of where you kind of the point and the line of your career trajectory. But if you look at the beginning, how did you get into technology and cybersecurity?
Well, it's like so many of us in this profession, it was accidental. In that I worked for Digital Equipment Corporation. And I was a very young lady, and I worked in something they called the learning centers. So this was a place where at a lot of the major campuses, we would have a drop-in center to learn how to do fill in the blank. A lot of office automation tools and whatnot. Well, around about this time, we were hacked. Digital Equipment was hacked, and this goes back to Kevin Mitnick. He was the one that broke into our facility in New Hampshire, Spitbrook, and was able to exfiltrate the VAX VMS version 5 source code. So as you can imagine, it was like all hands on deck. Truly. And they developed a tool, a security tool, a multiple actually, and they needed somebody to go around the country and teach the system managers or administrators how to run this tool. So I, working in an engineering facility, was tagged and said, would you like to? And of course, I've never looked a gift horse in the mouth and said, sure. I always took those opportunities that, nobody ever wanted, because back in those days, IT guys and girls were like, I don't want security. And I'd be, okay, I'll do it. Nobody else wants it. I'll take it. So I got to go around the country teaching people how to use this security tool, which was way ahead of its time, and have been in cybersecurity, information security since. And it's been well over 35 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
Amazing.
I,
What an incredible story. I
yeah,
coincidentally actually met Kevin Mitnick at RSA a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, he passed away.
yes,
So
yes.
so young. It's very sad. And he was a spokesperson for No before, and I was there for a book signing.
Mhm.
What an very interesting person. Yeah, it's so sad that he passed away before his time.
Yes.
But interesting. That's an amazing story. From kind of your vantage point and from your perspective, well, things obviously changed since um, DEC and since HP, since those days. I think cybersecurity is more kind of front and center, and there's so much money is going into the space, and there's so much more awareness from on the technology side and on the board level, C level executives on the importance of it. And I think as a result, a lot more maybe junior professionals looking to either make a career
Yeah.
or transition from technology to cybersecurity as they see it as a growing field. From your experience, from your vantage point, what will be your advice to some of the junior professionals? What are the 2 or 3 things you think they should focus on? Time is everyone's most crucial resource. And there's so
Right.
many shiny objects, so many things you can spend your time on. What are the 2 or 3 things that younger professionals you think should double down on and uh, really pay attention to set them up for success in their career?
Yeah, sure. So, I think there used to be a lot of emphasis on formal education, right? And certifications. So I still think that's important. However, I think based on my past role as immediate vice president, or excuse me, president of ISSA, we did find, however, that the best way to really get into the field and to be successful is to find a mentor, right? So find somebody that you can have them help you get guidance and direction. I will say though, certifications is still important. It's a way for us to prove that we know what we know and all of that. So I would say, go after the Security Plus, go after, the certs that are out there, more of the general nature, like from ISC squared or ISACA. So again, the 3 organizations would be CompTIA Security Plus, ISACA certifications, as well as ISC squared. Those are, again, means for us to identify, we know what we know. There's a baseline knowledge truly associated with that. So that's really important. But the other thing that I've experienced as I've gone through my career and working with different individuals is that folks that receive this training, if you will, they're trained on the tools, but they're not trained on how to apply the tools. And so what I mean by that is, like, I was working with this group of individuals who we were implementing, and sorry to name the actual tool, but it was WebSense. So it's a gateway filtering, right? So we had to implement it and they didn't know where to begin. And it's like, guys, come on, think about it. It's all about the acceptable use policy. What can they do or not do in regards to technology use? So let's, look at your acceptable use policy and lock it down, or, set those parameters with the technology using that guidance. So unfortunately, we're so focused on teaching people how to use technology that we're not really teaching them holistically of how to take the application of what the requirements are from the business or security and how to apply them into the technology. So I would say to anybody coming into the field, don't just understand, what the flips and switches are, but ask why and what's the reasoning. That will get you so far down the road. And it's all about common sense and logic. So, those would be the tips. In try to get as much hands-on experience as possible. There's a lot of really cool initiatives going on right now to help people get that hands-on experience. Because let's face it, a lot of organizations don't want to hire people without experience. Even the entry level positions, we see entry level, but must have, 3 years experience. It's like, how can you get 3 years experience if you're entry level? That's, that's counter to what that is. So I would really advocate for people to not just learn the technologies, find out the whys, and then look at some of the resources that are out there now. I'm hearing about all kinds of cyber ranges where people can get hands-on. There's a lot of stuff coming out of the White House that just recently announced their strategy. So really tie in and find out what even our governments can offer for those of us that are around the world, including here in the United States.
Certainly, absolutely. It's makes a lot of sense, and it's almost like if you learn a tool, tools change. I mean, back in my days, it was COBOL and BASIC and whatnot. Like I'm dating myself, but tools change, but the reason doesn't change, right? There is data to be protected, and there are attackers and there are defenders. So that hasn't changed in decades. It's really the tools, the weapons, and the defensive mechanisms change, but the dynamic of this relationship hasn't really changed much.
Yes.
And on that point, do you think it would make more sense to go deep on kind of one aspect of cybersecurity, or as a young professional to get exposure to a broad range of different aspects, and then pick one that kind of strikes your fancy and something that you can promise yourself to be excited about for a long period of time to kind of make a career out of it and not get burned out?
That's a really interesting question. I've never been asked that. And so I guess take pause for a moment. And so, of course, the practical me would say go wide and go shallow, right? Learn as much. And yeah, so that would be it. Go wide and shallow, find out what areas that interest you. Like when I first started in InfoSec, there was like just information security. That was it. Now you look at all of the different disciplines within our profession, it's mind-blowing. So, go and do a rotation of the different types of roles that are out there. And then when you find the role or the thing that gets you excited and gets you passionate, stick with it, right? And then you go deep, because if you try to stay wide and shallow, you're going to be on that merry-go-round for the rest of your career. So I really think you need to go with what you instinctively are passionate about, because when you talk to a lot of cyber professionals, we're all passionate about something, and it's that little laser beam focused nuance that makes us unique, and that's what makes us a really powerful entity as a community, is that we all have our specialties. So really go with what you're passionate about, because then you're going to be driven to complete.
But to your point, kind of start wide so you can find what is that you're passionate about when you're just starting and learning, but then go deep once you identify what that is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. It's I recently talked to someone and they said something that was I thought it was very insightful. So as defenders, cybersecurity practitioners need to be right 100% of the time, but as an attacker, you only need to be right once. It's really kind of to find this chink in the armor, find this weak link, and whether it's 0 day, whether it's social engineering, and you succeed. But for cybersecurity professionals to be successful, they need to be 24/7, always on, always right, no mistakes, which is kind of asymmetric if you think about it. And even that is a moving target, right? So the technologies change, attack vectors change.
Right.
What before, I think some of the marketing materials still feature teenagers in hoodies. It's not the case anymore. It's government, state-sponsored, very well-resourced APTs. So it's almost enterprise scale and enterprise sophistication level adversaries there that some of the CISOs are facing. So it's no longer kids in their mom's basement. It's really very well resourced, very technologically savvy organizations. So and again, and this is it's only escalating. The better the defenses, the better the attackers. It seems like it's a never-ending progression. So as you look at the landscape now, and it looks like you have a lot of experience kind of in various company sizes and industries. What are the two or three challenges that everyone is most worried about? Is it the cloud? Is it third party security? We've seen attacks. The most recent one, I'm not sure if you saw in Las Vegas, some of the biggest casinos are bricked, which I cannot imagine the losses they're suffering right now. But what, from your perspective, kind of high level, holistically, what are the two or three things that are absolutely most important ones?
So before I touch on that, I want to go back a moment on, that the hackers only have to be, or excuse me, malicious threat actors have to be right once, and we have to be right all the time. But the thing is with experience, you get to understand motive, and then you can focus the, critical risk factors into it and focus on those. So I wanted to point that out. You're right, but it's not, across the board. And when I look at some of the most common, threat vectors, or what keeps me up at night, absolutely, it's going to be those end users and phishing. Again, it goes back to motive. Where are those malicious threat actors? Where are they most successful? They're going to stick with what works, and what works is, attacking the weakest link in our security chain, and that's the end user. So yeah, definitely ransomware and phishing is going to be number one for some time, and it has been, only because it's so successful. And then when we look at some of the other things that worry me, absolutely, cloud is terrifying, because I don't think that everybody understands when you go to the cloud, it is cost effective, right? From a business perspective. And that's where we're all coming from, is trying to support the business. They're running to the cloud, and why wouldn't they? But the thing is it makes it really difficult for us as security practitioners, and even from an operations standpoint, IT ops perspective. Where is our perimeter? It's gone, and it's going exponentially out into vaporware. So we need to get a control on that. That's going to be a challenge, I would say, for the next 3 to 5 years. And then, lastly, I think we really need not kid ourselves. Everybody's talking about AI, and generative and LLMs and all of that. So yeah, I'm going to jump on that bandwagon just for a moment. And I've been perplexed as to really understand what are the threat vectors that I'm concerned about when it comes to AI and machine learning and all that. And it comes down to something that really caught my eye this morning, is data poisoning, right? So to overly simplify the model, so AI is nothing more than crowdsourced knowledge. Now think about it. It depends on what crowd you're hanging out with, right? And so if you're going to go and, build that knowledge base off a very biased crowd, then yeah, there's going to be issues. Now think for a moment, if the malicious actors are able to poison that data, which they have.
The training data?
Yes, absolutely. And the models thereof. So I think it's really important to think about all the aspects. And I think another thing, when we talk about AI and ML and all of those things, that we really need to, it's kind of like blurry vision, right? Like my background, it's blurred right now. We can't really see, we can make things out. And that's what's going on with ML and AI today. And things are going to come into a clearer and clearer view, and we have to be patient. We have to, keep an eye on that scenario. But when things become clearer, we're going to have to really pay attention to where those vectors are. Like I said, like data poisoning and things like that.
Interesting. I think it's certainly a lot of people give the sense that, there were kind of major waves. Internet was the first wave, if you think, if you can call it that way. Then there was the shift to mobile, from desktop computers to You have a very powerful computer in the palm of your hand. And a lot of people think that the AI and machine learning, it's kind of the third wave based on some of the potential applications and based on how fast it's improving, how fast it's evolving. So to your point, it's still blurry. So I think it still remains to be seen what are some of the applications are. But I think we're already seeing, to your point, before you can get an phishing email, and you can, like, the grammar is lacking and the punctuation is all over the place and the fonts are sloppy, so you can tell you can guess where it's coming from. It's not coming from across the street. It's coming from somewhere else, and it's clear. You can train your eye to pick out on some of those things, and with AI,
Yes.
it's those business email compromise exploits and phishing emails. I think they're getting more polished, if anything. So that's kind of like an immediate. This is what we've seen, an immediate use case for attackers, for malicious actors, to use just to generate plausibly sounding emails with a malicious link or malicious attachment. So at least that's what we're seeing. It's interesting. So all those three themes are kind of very, very interesting. I think they will remain prevalent, remain top of mind for at least quite some time. I know we're coming up on time a little bit. So switching gears, we set an interesting spot between practitioners on one side and cybersecurity vendors on the other, and we're always kind of fascinated by this. I guess best practices. Sometimes we see cybersecurity vendors as being overly aggressive in pushing their tools, and sometimes we see cybersecurity practitioners being overwhelmed just by the choice and sometimes blurry or confusing messaging in the marketplace. It seems there are so many bold promises about capabilities of some of those tools. You've been in the industry for a bit, so what are some of the best practices? What are some of the vendors, without naming names, that you thought did an amazing job building a relation, providing value, and what are some of the things that just absolutely non-starters that you see some of the vendors, some of the behaviors that the vendors really should not be engaging, like from your perspective? Because I'm sure you probably get a lot of emails, a lot of approaches, whether in LinkedIn or email.
It's terrible. It's overwhelming. It really is. It's like I won't even answer my phone now unless I recognize the number. I'm totally serious. It's terrible. And it's not just me. Cyber professionals, especially CISOs, we're getting like overloaded and slammed with all kinds of cold calls and reach outs on LinkedIn and everything else. So that is not what works for me, nor a lot of my peers. Is don't cold call us and try to sell to us. I think and I said this a long time ago when I was a real FTE in company, CISO. It's like, don't call me, I'll call you, or come to me and tell me what problem you're going to solve. Don't tell me like your tool and solution is going to do everything, including wash the windows and alert and all of that, because we all learned what alerting can do with the adoption of SIMs, right? EPS, events per second, millions, trillions. It's like, that's not necessarily a good thing. So yeah, I needed to be alerted, but let's think about the use case. Is it humanly possible to respond? No, that's why we have the SIM. Not humanly possible to answer, or pay attention to those. So really understand what the problem is the solution is trying to solve, and what is the life in a day, or day in a life, I should say, of a CISO or a security practitioner. What does it consist of? And then try to build a solution to make their life better. Not trying to outdo, well, so-and-so's got this tool, so we can do that better by, changing the GUI or whatever. Stop doing that. There's a lot of studies out there, that are, including one from the ISSA last year we're overwhelmed and overloaded with the vendor hype. We got to stop with the hype, work with your CISOs and your security architects as to what are the problems that they're experiencing today, and then design solutions to fix it. I know it's oversimplified, but that's really what it comes down to. You do that, the reputation's going to get out there that you're somebody who's working and helping to make our jobs and lives easier and better. And then the adoption of that will be like wildfire.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, because I think part of this overwhelm that you're talking about, it comes from just the ever increasing range of vendors. I hear that some of the companies, some of the CISOs, they have dozens, I hear from like 50, 60 different vendors, different products. So for me, just it's impossible to manage all those relationships. You need to worry about how those tools interoperate. You worry about how those tools, whether introducing new tool will compromise the cybersecurity posture of the organization. So the medicine you're taking will make you worse off than without. And also, just to your point, keeping track of all those alerts. I mean, 50, 60 dashboards, it's not humanly possible without either something to prioritize and say, well, we have all those alerts, but only 5 are critical. I think it certainly goes, understanding what CISO is going through would certainly go a long way, and being different from the vendor perspective is certainly better than being better, because it's just, it does make a lot of sense to rip something that's working. I made a valiant attempt at summarizing what you said, but I'm not sure if I succeeded.
You did. And the only other thing I would say is that with the many point solutions that we have in our arsenal, in our organizations, remember, we're already understaffed and overwhelmed. So the more complex the tool and solution, the more it's not going to be used, and the appreciation is not going to be experienced. So again, realize that we don't have time to learn complicated technologies. It really needs to be as simple as plug and play and very intuitive. Because again, we don't, one is actually a security control. Are you utilizing your tools and technologies to its fullest potential? And a lot of us can't, because we can't have our staff going to, training for a week like, used to back in the day. You can't do that anymore. You just need to hit the ground running right away. And I know that vendors have attempted to do like jumpstart services where professional services come in and, hand the keys over to you, but it still takes time to, figure it out. And then when you have the multiple consoles, like you mentioned, it's just not, it's counterproductive. So, yeah.
Well, it's you need to keep flying the plane. You can't land, disassemble, reassemble, and take off. You need to keep on flying, and without like without taking the engine apart, right?
Right.
Right. Kenya, this was amazing. Thank you so much for taking time for this. This was very interesting, insightful, and thought-provoking. Where can people find you? What's the best way to connect?
Best way to connect is through LinkedIn. I don't read it daily, unfortunately, but I do pay attention to my messaging. So I would encourage people to connect with me and send me a note, and I will get back to them as soon as I can. But I thank you very much. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
It was. Thank you so much.